Hey everyone, Nubkeks here, and in today's video we're checking out the Affliction Warlock on the Shadowlands beta for World of Warcraft. We'll be checking out Destruction and Demonology over the next couple of days, and of course we've already checked out several specs and classes, and we'll be looking at every remaining spec in class on the beta over the next couple of weeks. So yeah, lots of content coming towards you from the Shadowlands beta. Hope you'll enjoy, and let's dive into it. Alright guys, and here we are in game. I'm the glowy eye Worgen, and we're hanging out with the best doggo in the world, Sloopum. Hi Sloopum. Let's check out the Affliction Warlock core gameplay rotation. This is like a basic intro to the class for people looking to pick up a new spec, or for people who are returning and want a refresher on how the spec actually plays. Then after that we'll dive into the new abilities that are coming for the Affliction Warlocks. There's quite a few. In fact, we'll cover a couple of them here, sort of by necessity as part of the core rotation. And then, of course, we'll look after that at the Conduits, the Legendaries, Covenant abilities, all that good stuff. So, what is the basic gameplay of the Affliction Warlock? Well, of course, we have our pets, and you've got 4 different pets. Imp, who's range damage and can dispel. Void Walker, who's melee tank. Fell Hunter, who is kind of an anti-spell caster. He gives you your spell interrupt, your only spell interrupt. And then the Succubus, who can charm humanoids and stop them attacking. You got your 4 pets. They all do basically the same damage. We're going to run with our best boy Sloopum. He's what you're going to use in a lot of situations in Mythic Plus and PvP, because he does have that interrupt and that purge effect. So he's just going to do his thing. Now, as the Affliction Warlock, we're obviously going to be using Soul Shards. We'll come back to Soul Shards in a minute, though, because first I want to direct you to our core dots. I do have talents taken that are just not going to interfere with the baseline rotation, so ignore this Siphon Life thing. We'll come back to that later. We have 3 dots which are part of our core rotation. The first one is Agony, and this is actually going to generate us extra soul shards on a chance. So Agony does 1000 shadow damage over 18 seconds. The damage starts slow but ramps up over time. You can see the little stacks on it, and the stacks are also displayed up there. So it's very important that you refresh Agony before it expires, because otherwise it's going to start with that really low damage. You want it to be always rolling at that high damage point. In fact, let me touch on this very quickly because this is relevant then. There's something called the pandemic window, which affects basically all dot classes and buffs in the game, or most of them really, which is where if you refresh a dot in the last 30% of its duration, it will actually simply add that on. So for example, if I refresh Agony, I think it's in the last like 4.5 seconds or something like that. You see I have my weak aura set up to show it. It will simply add the 18 seconds on to that. So we'll see it here in just a second. So yeah, this means that, okay, it's safe to reapply Agony, and it's just going to add this duration on. Our other dot is Corruption. So this is a very simple one. You corrupt the target, does 800 shadow damage over 14 seconds. So simple, straightforward. Just, it's just going to do damage. That's it. Agony, of course, is sometimes randomly going to generate soul shards. Our other dot, then, is going to be Unstable Affliction. This was a spender, the soul shard spender in BFA. No longer the case. This is now a baseline dot that you're going to manage. So as you can see, this does a lot of damage. It's going to do 1800 damage over 16 seconds. If it gets dispelled, it's going to do 1800 damage to the dispeller and silence them for 4 seconds. However, you can only have 1 Unstable Affliction out at a time. So you have to choose your priority target, the most important target for you. That's what your Unstable Affliction is going to go on. And on top of that as well, a little bit of extra gameplay here too. It will generate 1 soul shard if the target dies while it has Unstable Affliction on them. So very important in Mythic Plus or in PvE. You can put this on targets that are going to die to generate extra soul shards. But that's where your core gameplay is going to be, keeping these 3 dots rolling. How do we spend our soul shards then? Well, we've got 2 ways to spend them by default. The first one is new for Shadowlands. It's Malefic Rapture. This is pretty awesome. So this costs 1 soul shard. 1.3 second cast. Here it goes. Boom. And very simply, this will do about 300 shadow damage for each dot that we have on any given target. So for example, if I put Agony on this target, right, and I do Malefic Rapture, it's going to trigger off the 3 dots on this guy and the 1 dot on him. So this ties in not only to your single target rotation, but to your AoE rotation as well. The more dots you have on a target, the more damage it's going to do. Our other soul shard spender is Seed of Corruption. Now, this was more important, I guess, in BFA, because this was like our AoE spender. We used to spend with Unstable Affliction, which is purely single target. So some of that AoE spender has kind of been taken over by Malefic Rapture, but Seed of Corruption is essentially going to help you spread your Corruption dot onto many targets at the same time. So it has a 2.1 second cast, costs 1 soul shard. You'll throw it. It has a bit of a travel time. There we go. And it embeds a seed in the target. The seed will explode after 10 seconds or after you have done 287 damage from your spells to them. In this case, it's going to just expire due to time. When it expires, it will do about 250 shadow damage to all enemies within 10 yards, and it will dot them all with corruption. So this helps you just apply your corruption dot very easily to multiple targets. And yeah, that's your baseline core rotation. Like, that's it. There's a lot of stuff that talents add in, but that is the core rotation. So we're going to have Unstable Affliction on. We're going to maintain Corruption. And in single target, we're going to Malefic Rapture. You know what? I actually forgot one bit, which was Shadow Bolt. So Shadow Bolt is your filler spell when there's nothing else to do. It's going to do some damage. And there's actually a new thing coming in Shadowlands as well, which is this is Shadow Embrace. So this is a passive, stacks up to 3 times. Your Shadow Bolt stacks it up, which increases the damage that you do to the target by 9%. So again, in single target, you're going to be using your Shadow Bolt to fill in, and you're going to be maintaining your dots, spending with Malefic Rapture. Obviously, never let your dots fall off. Try to keep your Shadow Embrace up at all times as well. We just barely got it there. And yeah, that's your single target rotation. For AoE, we're going to keep our dots rolling on them as well. We'll obviously keep this going on our main target. I found it's relatively stressful to keep your Shadow Embrace up on multiple targets, but perhaps that is something you could do, a bit of multi-dotting with Shadow Embrace, perhaps, if you're very, very skilled. And yeah, you're going to try just keep those dots up. That's your core gameplay, right? You also have a damage cooldown, which is quite fun. In fact, let me get my dots back up here. I'll show you this one. This is, I put Siphon Life on him by accident. Ah, well. This is Summon Dark Glare. I'm going to summon him right now. Bam, here he comes. He's very cool. You summon a Dark Glare from the Twisting Nether. So, very cool. 3-minute cooldown, but he's going to extend all of your active dot effects. You can see that, you will have seen it right there, the big dot extensions on everything. All of your dots on every target. He's going to extend those by 8 seconds. So, great for multi-dotting in AoE. He'll also then hang around for 20 seconds, and he's going to blast the target that you set him on for about 190 damage, shadow damage, and he'll do 10% more damage for every damage over time effect you have on any target. So awesome. He's, you know, going to be good priority damage on your main target that you cast him on, but he's also increasing the duration of all of your dots on everything, and the more dots you have out there, the more dots you've spread out and applied, the more damage he's going to do in that single target scenario. So pretty nice cooldown. There's a lot of stuff in here that's also new, so I don't want to touch on it. And also I'm going to discuss the talents in detail because there's been a lot of talent reshuffles for the Warlock, but you have a few other little bits here. Obviously, of course, in terms of utility, you have your Warlock Gateway, which is awesome for the raid, so you can do that and teleport over. You have your Ritual of Summoning. You can summon in a portal to summon people in. You can create your Soul Well to give people health stones, which you can consume, which is fantastic. Get your health stones in there, which is really, really good. You can banish demons, aberrations, or elementals, which is cool. They don't take any damage, but it removes them from the fight, so a nice bit of utility. You can enslave demons, which will be useful in some situations. You can also fear things. Fear has a 1.5 second cast. It's not going to do anything against a target dummy. They're immune, but it disorients an enemy for 20 seconds. You can only fear one thing at a time, but you can kind of do that several times in a row. I think 3 times before they're deored. Yeah, you have that. You have an AoE stun with Shadow Fury. Boom, boom. And yeah, you can also heal yourself with Drain Life. So this drains your mana, which otherwise isn't that important of a resource, but you can Drain Life. It's going to do some damage over time. You can Health Funnel instead, which is going to heal your demon. I can't do it right now because he's full health, but I can give my health to my demon. I can channel to restore my health. And then your major defensive cooldown is Unending Resolve, which is going to give you 40% damage reduction for 8 seconds and give you immunity to interrupt and silence effects. It also has a very cool effect, actually, which I've never really paid attention to be completely honest with you. And then a few other things. You can give Unending Breath, Swim Speed, Breathe Underwater, Eye of Kilrog, Look Around the Place. I think that's most of the core gameplay stuff here for the Affliction Warlock, but let's look at what's coming that's specifically new, and let's look at the talents, because there's a very interesting talent tree as well. Let's dive into that. Alright guys, well, what is new for the Affliction Warlock specifically in Shadowlands? There's actually quite a lot of stuff here that's coming, which is very exciting. Let me start with some bad news first, I guess. Let me start with some bad news, and then we can add the good news on after that. The bad news is that in order to summon a pet, this now has a pretty much a whopper of a cast time, right? You can see that pets, for me, now have a 5.1 second cast time. That's with 18% haste. So it takes a long time to summon your pet if he's dead. semi-good news to make this a little bit better is that you do have a 3-minute cooldown. 3 minutes, so that's a downside, but this will make your next summon have a 5.5 second reduced casting time. So in this case, it makes it a 0.4 second cast time. I guess it's haste is affecting this stuff in a kind of a weird way, so it doesn't quite make it instant cast, but makes it almost instant cast. So yeah, every 3 minutes you'll almost instantly be able to resummon a new demon. So if your demon dies, you can summon a new one. But if you want to use the Void Walker because he's tanking for you, and then you want to swap quickly to your Fell Hunter for a quick interrupt or a quick purge, you can do that with Fell Domination, kind of, right? Not every 3 minutes, you can do a quick swap. So there you go. Like I said, that's bad news, but there is good news. There's good news. Okay. One interesting thing that we have coming back, and I haven't actually, you'll see if you're eagle eyes in the footage later on, I didn't actually use these all this much. They're just not very useful in single target solo content in the world right now for leveling. But these will be very, very good for PvP. And very good, I think, for some Mythic Plus utility and a bit of Rage utility as well. But we have curses returning for the Warlock specs. So you have 4 curses. The first curse is Curse of Tongues. Curse a target for 30 seconds, increasing the casting time of all their spells by 30% for 30 seconds. Curse of Weakness then is another one, our next one. This will increase the time between an enemy's attacks by 20% for 2 minutes. We have Curse of Exhaustion, which will reduce the target's movement speed by 50% for 8 seconds. Actually, this target dummy is immune to it, so it won't actually work. And then finally, this one is quite a bit different as well. This is Curse of Recklessness. This increases an enemy's physical damage done, but also increases its physical damage taken by 5% for 2 minutes. On top of that, cursed enemies will also ignore fear effects and refuse to flee from combat. So certainly this is a debuff you're going to be maintaining on a raid boss, for example. 5% more damage done to the raid boss. It'll make your tanks take more damage, but that's probably going to be okay. This is a reason to bring Warlocks to raid fights. In Mythic Plus, this could be useful for enemies that are going to run away. You can stop them running away. Certainly, if your tank is able to deal with the increased physical damage done, and if they're not hitting other members of your group, increasing the physical damage taken could be a big boon if you're running with, you know, let's say an arms warrior and a combat rogue or something. They're really going to... combat rogue! Whoop, Freudian slip. An outlaw rogue. They're going to appreciate that damage increase in like a prot warrior. So that could be good right there. So yeah, there are definitely some uses for this, but there's of course the risk tied into it as well that they're going to do more physical damage. So there are your 4 curses, and you're going to be able to choose which curse to apply to which enemy at which time. So nice chunk of added utility. Next up, this one is very good news as well. Demonic Circle, which was previously a talent, is now baseline. So you can summon in your circle. You can do this on it has a very quick cast. 10-second cooldown. The circle lasts for 15 minutes, so it lasts for a long time. And then you have your Demonic Circle teleport spell. This has a 40-yard range, and you can instantly teleport to your Demonic Circle, removing all movement slowing effects. So phenomenal for PvP, for arena, and also incredibly useful for raid fights. So like at a simple level, you know, there's a bomb on you, drop it away from the group, you can run out, teleport back with Demonic Circle. You can also, like, again, if you think about Mythic N'Zoth, for example, or N'Zoth where the laser's spinning around, I can be over here, wait for the laser to pass my circle, and then I just instantly teleport over, not going to be affected. So that's pretty awesome. This guy's excited by my gateway. So yeah, lots of cool things you can do with this. Maybe not quite as useful in Mythic Plus, but you'll definitely find some uses for it, for dodging some stuff. So an awesome mobility skill to add baseline to the Affliction Warlock toolkit. In fact, all the Warlock toolkits. For Affliction specifically, the biggest change you're going to see in your rotation, and this is quite a substantial change, is Unstable Affliction is no longer your soul shard spender. In fact, Unstable Affliction is now just a dot that you're going to maintain. You can only have one of these out at a time, but it does an awful lot of damage, 1800 shadow damage over 16 seconds, and obviously it does a big chunk of damage and punishes people who dispel it. But this will generate a soul shard if the target dies while afflicted with the Unstable Affliction. So there's going to be definitely some gameplay in choosing which target to put this on. Are you going to put it on like the most tanky target because you really want to get extra damage on the most tanky target? Or are you going to put it on like weaker targets that are going to die to snipe out some soul shards? So lots of skill play to do with that. And then the other big change is, well, what are we spending our soul shards on if not Unstable Affliction? Well, we have now Malefic Rapture. This has a 1.3 second cast. It's not going to do anything right now because I don't have any dots up. But this is going to do about 300 shadow damage, again, at this particular item level, to all targets in line of sight per dot afflicted to them. So, for instance, I can by default very easily, I'll have Unstable Affliction, Agony, and Corruption up on this target. If I cast Malefic Rapture, it's gonna bam, hit him for about 1300. I can, for example, have Agony on this guy as well. It's gonna hit him for 400 and hit him for 1300, right? So you get the idea. And again, if I put more dots on, so again, here he's 3, he is 2, he is 1, and you can see 1300, 800, 400, right? It's going to do damage based off the number of dots that you have. So this is a very, very powerful spender. Really awesome. It's amazing how one little change can really completely change how a spec plays. This is obviously phenomenal in AoE. It's going to do tons of damage in AoE once you get your dots out and on enemies, and there's some nice synergies and combos that you can do. This is going to help you pump a lot of AoE damage. It's much burstier than the old Unstable Affliction was. It works in AoE, so this is really going to change how the Affliction Warlock is going to work. Gives you massive, as you can see, spread cleave damage, massive spread cleave, super powerful for PvP, great for Mythic Plus, makes you way stronger in Mythic Plus now. Obviously, it's going to work still great in single target raid fights as well. You know, there's a lot of great things about Malefic Rapture. A lot of great things there. And obviously, this is going to tie in with any talents such as Siphon Life, which are additional dots that you can grab. Or again, to show you a specific combo that I was using, Vile Taint becomes very powerful. Vile Taint is a 20-second cooldown, puts a 10-second dot in AoE. So, for example, you can use the Vile Taint and let's say a Seed of Corruption to spread Corruption and Vile Taint on multiple targets, and then you can spam out some Malefic Raptures for some pretty chunky instant burst damage, which is very cool. Okay, we have also a few leveling perks. So the level 52 leveling perk is pretty significant. This is called Shadow Embrace. So it's this dot here, or this debuff here on the target. Not a dot, it's a debuff. So the debuff lasts for 12 seconds and can stack up to 3 times. This increases damage taken from you for that target by 3% per stack. So for 9% total at maximum stacks, you're going to be doing 9% more damage to that target. So this ties into Shadow Bolt, your filler spell, and you're definitely going to want to maintain this on your main target, especially with your Unstable Affliction, and that's going to help you do a lot more sort of focused damage onto that target. Corruption also has a rank 3 level 54. You get Shadow Embrace level 52. Here it is, Shadow Embrace level 52. Shadow Bolt and Haunt apply it. Corruption, rank 3, just makes Corruption instantly do a little bit of damage, so that's nice. Gonna help with your multi-dotting, feel a bit better. And then there's a rank 3 for Unstable Affliction at level 56, which increases its duration by 5 seconds, making it a 21-second dot, which is extremely long for a dot. And that will make managing your Unstable Affliction a little bit easier. You won't have to stress about it too much and help out in your AoE sort of multi-dotting situation. So yeah, those are the baseline ability changes for the Affliction Warlock. In terms of your talents then, there's obviously been an absolute ton changed. An absolute ton changed in the talent tree to go with this new Malefic Rapture spending Warlock. Let's take a little look here. So, first of all, level 15, we have Nightfall. Corruption damage has a chance to make your next Shadow Bolt be instant cast and do 50% increased damage. This has been changed to now scale with AoE. I think in BFA it did not. So if you were fighting, you know, multiple targets, it didn't matter if you had Corruption on one target or on 20 billion, you'd still get the same amount of procs. This now scales based off of, I think it was just 4 procs per minute, and now this scales based off how many targets you have, so it's going to be even better in AoE. Inevitable Demise, which was a very cool Azurite trait, is now a talent level 15 as well. Damaging an enemy with Agony increases the damage of your next Drain Life by 12%, and this effect stacks up to 50 times. So this makes your Drain Life, when it's fully stacked, do an absolute ton of damage, so this is also going to help your focus damage. It's going to help you funnel damage, multi-dot things with Agony, build up a really powerful Drain Life, and then use that Drain Life to nuke a target, whilst also healing you for quite a ton of damage, because it heals you for 500% of the damage done. So once this gets going, it's going to do a lot. And then finally at level 15, you have Drain Soul, which replaces Shadow Bolt. And instead of, you know, spamming the Shadow Bolt, it's just going to channel Drain Soul. Now, one thing to note is this does stack up Shadow Embrace very quickly. So there's definitely plays to be made with that. This stacks up your Shadow Embrace very quickly, much easier to get into that, which is cool. Also, it does double damage to enemies below 20% health, so a very significant execute component to this. And it also generates one soul shard, if the target dies while you're channeling Drain Soul on them. So a very nice way to generate some extra soul shards. Level 25, Writhe and Agony now starts Agony's damage at 4 stacks, and it can ramp it up to 18 stacks instead of the 10 stacks. So very valuable for perhaps some For some fights where that agony damage is going to be very impactful, I'm not sure exactly what the situation would be. Absolute Corruption is great for Mythic Plus to make that a little bit easier. Corruption is permanent and deals 15% increased damage, or it does last for 24 seconds against players. So this is great for Mythic Plus. You know, you just, once you get those Corruption on your enemies, you don't have to refresh Corruption. It's just done. So like you get a Seed of Corruption on a big pack of mobs in AoE, and you don't have to worry about it again. Corruption is on all of them, which is fantastic. I'm going to constantly be doing damage and fueling your Malefic Rapture. And of course, constantly ticking and proccing Nightfall. So quite a nice little thing there. Or then you have Siphon Life, which is another dot. Siphon the target's life essence, doing 770 shadow damage over 15 seconds and healing you for 30% of the damage done. Obviously, this has a wonderful synergy. It is another dot. So this gives you a fourth dot. So it's going to increase the damage of your Malefic Rapture in single target by quite a lot. Right? So now I've got 4 dots on my target. In fact, I should drain soul before I start blasting here, get my 3 stacks, and now I'm going to blast at Malefic Rapture and really exploit the fact that I have so many dots on the target. So a very interesting one there. Again, it really changes your gameplay rotation, where you're going from, I have to manage 4 dots on a target with Siphon Life, to going, okay, well, with Absolute Corruption, I put Corruption on once, and then I'm just worried about dotting with Agony and one target with Unstable Affliction, and that's all I'm really worried about. So it does change your gameplay a lot. Level 30, I think, is still the same. Demon Skin Burning Rush Dark Pact. Level 35 has changed a bit, so Sow the Seeds now embeds the Demon Seeds into 2 additional nearby enemies. This one's a little bit questionable because, again, I'm not sure if this is going to work out to be that good. It's going to depend how many targets there are, I guess. But someone can do the maths on that and work it out. Obviously, the issue with this talent is that, well, Seed of Corruption, I mean, Malefic Rapture is already doing AoE damage, so is it going to be better than these other options? I'm not sure. Phantom Singularity is a 45-second cooldown, puts a Phantom Singularity above the target, which consumes the life force of all enemies within 15 yards, doing 1,500 damage over 13.5 seconds, and healing you for 25% of the damage done. So a good single target talent, and obviously going to do some good AoE damage too. Vile Taint is now quite interesting. So this costly Soul Shard has a 20-second cooldown. This is an AoE Soul Shard spender, so it costs, again, 1 Soul Shard, but it puts a Vile Taint in AoE, which is going to do 1,100 shadow damage over 10 seconds to all enemies hit, and also reduce their movement speed by 30%. So the move speed reduction is quite nice, and also this very much ties into, well, Malefic Rapture, right? If a bunch of ads spawn in, I can drop a Seed of Corruption on them, I can drop a Vile Taint on them, and once that Seed of Corruption explodes, they're going to have Corruption and Vile Taint, so that's 2 dots on the target, and then I can spend with Malefic Rapture. Level 40, Dark Fury now reduces the cooldown of Shadow Fury by 15 seconds and increases the radius by 2 yards, so that's a nice perk. Mortal Coil is there, I think still the same. And there we have Howl of Terror is here to replace Demonic Circle. This is a 1.3 second cast. This is a returning ability, of course, from the past. 40-second cooldown. Let loose a terrifying howl, causing 5 enemies within 10 yards to flee in fear, disorienting them for 20 seconds. Damage may cancel the effect. So again, quite interesting here. So this is much more CC focused here, like single target in cap, that's going to heal you. The cast time, but AoE Fear, which could be quite useful for, again, another AoE stop in Mythic Plus. Could be another defensive in PvP, or just make your stun better with Dark Fury. So interesting choices. And then the final 2 talent tiers have been rebalanced a good bit as well. So Dark Caller is here now. Dark Caller reduces the cooldown of Dark Lair, Summon Dark Lair, by 60 seconds. Makes it a 2-minute cooldown instead of a 3-minute. That has a particular synergy with Dark Soul Misery, which we'll come to. So that's quite good. Very good, in fact. Haunt then is also here. This lasts slightly longer. This lasts 18 seconds now. Again, it is another dot with a 15-second cooldown and a cast time. It will do 400 shadow damage to the target, but more importantly, it increases the damage you're going to do to the target by 10% for 18 seconds, which is a pretty big deal. So yeah, again, another sort of priority thing. You're probably going to put this on the target with Unstable Affliction and manage both of those. Or then you have Grimoire of Sacrifice, where you can sacrifice your demon pet. Mostly I think you'd use this to sacrifice your Void Walker to get the defensive buff on yourself, I think. Makes your spells also do some more shadow damage. I think generally speaking you're usually not taking this apart from niche circumstances, but it is there for sure. Then level 50, Soul Conduit, Soul Shard, spend 15% chance to be refunded. Creeping Death makes your dots do their damage faster, which could be good for Mythic Plus perhaps. And then you've got Dark Soul Misery, which is a 2-minute cooldown that gives you haste for 30% haste for 20 seconds. This has a really good combo, obviously, with Dark Caller, right? You get a 30% haste 2-minute cooldown for 20 seconds, overlapping with your 2-minute Summon Dark Glare, which lasts for 20 seconds. So these two in combination with each other seem extremely potent. But yeah, there you go, guys. That is the talent build. So for example, I think what I was running in the videos you're going to see was this build. So we got Drain Soul for sniping out targets, getting more soul shards. Absolute Corruption, because we were doing Mythic Plus, just to make it easier to multi-dot. Vile Taint for that AoE soul shard spender, so a good dot, and again powering up our Malefic Rapture. Mortal Coil just because it's handy, and then going with a 2-minute big cooldowns of Dark Soul, Misery, and Summon Dark Glare, and stacking those together. Again, you could have different builds, right? You could go for a more single target build with Siphon Life, Phantom Singularity. Okay, maybe I want Howl of Terror this time. I'm gonna grab Haunt and I don't know, maybe Creeping Death or something like that, and go for a really wacky build, like a different build. There's lots of different options here, so yeah, a very interesting reshuffle, I would say, of the talent tree. Yeah, very interesting one. We'll see. Like, I'm just a bit worried that maybe Dark Soul, Misery, and Dark Caller synergizing together might be a bit too strong and kind of kill the other talents. We'll have to see. I think certainly the rest of the tiers are quite intriguing. And yeah, that is the talents for the Affliction Warlock. For your conduits for the Affliction Warlock, there are 3 different types of conduits you can have. Endurance ones, which boost your survivability. Finesse, which boosts your utility. And Potency, which are going to boost your damage. You can see the soul binds that they slot into. There should be an example in the background. And you can get an idea for sort of the path you can take through. And you can see how the different slots kind of fit in. It's kind of like gem slots, right? First up, let's look at the Endurance conduits. So there are 3 right now for the Warlock. Accrued Vitality is the first one. Drain Life heals for X% of the amount drained over 10 seconds. So this starts at 44%, and it's going to scale up to 100% bonus healing from Drain Life. This is particularly good for the Affliction Warlock, obviously with the Inevitable Demise talent now at level 15, which is going to increase the damage that your Drain Life does. So that will obviously make it more powerful. So yeah, nice synergy with this conduit for the Affliction Warlock in particular. Diabolic Bloodstone is next. Your health stones will give you 20% leech for 10 seconds while used. It looks like this scales up to 34% leech for 10 seconds. That is a monstrous amount of leech, and this turns your health stone into a very, very substantial and very powerful self-healing cooldown. So very, very strong conduit there again. Resolute Barrier then is next. Attacks received that deal at least 5% of your health decrease Unending Resolve's cooldown by 10 seconds, and this cannot occur more than once every 30 seconds. Now, the ranks look really weird here. I have no idea exactly what this is going to mean, but needless to say, getting cooldown reduction on Unending Resolve, that could be pretty good. Yeah, we'll have to see exactly how much cooldown reduction that is going to be, but you're very frequently going to be hit by stuff that does 5% of your health, so it should be relatively easy to proc this every 30 seconds, and it may line up that this is worth using. Who knows? Finesse conduits are next. We have 3 right now. There's one additional one that should be coming soon. First up, we have Demonic Momentum. Demonic Circle is going to increase your movement speed by X% for 5 seconds. This starts at 30% and can go up to 58%. So that's a massive speed buff for 5 seconds after you teleport, so it could be excellent for PvP. Could have some uses in PvE as well. Certainly a nice one that you may want to run at certain points. Fell Celerity is the second one. This reduces the cooldown of Fell Domination by 45 seconds, and it looks like this goes up to about 90 seconds cooldown reduction, which would bring it from a 3-minute cooldown to 1.5-minute cooldown. So, I mean, that's obviously really nice. It's going to help you resummon your pets more frequently if they die and stuff like that. That being said, I think it feels really bad, really, really bad to have this actually be a conduit. I'm not sure why they changed the whole summon time on the Warlock pets. Seems a bit mean to me. Maybe it was a PvP thing, I don't know, but yeah, I don't know. It's gonna feel bad to run this and still feel a little bit worse than you did in terms of summoning pets in BFA, roughly speaking. So yeah, anyway, it's there. And finally, we have Shade of Terror. Damage required to break your fear effects is increased by X%. Looks like this starts at 100% and scales up to 170%. So this, again, could be great for PvP, where you want people to be feared for longer, especially if they're not in a situation where they can dispel those effects. So that could be pretty nice. This could be dangerous in some PvE situations. Might be good sometimes. Could be really dangerous other times, where a mob is actually just going to run into another mob pack and pull another pack unless you break that fear. So it could have a negative effect. So it's certainly situational, but that's okay. They are the finesse conduits. For your potency conduits for the Affliction Warlock, you have 4 of them. First up, we have Cold Embrace, which increases the effectiveness of Shadow Embrace by 33%, and this scales up to probably 75%, something like that. So I think this is pretty nice. Obviously, you know, the baseline 33%, instead of giving you 3% increased damage to the target per stack, it's going to be 4% damage to the target per stack. Again, at the highest ranks, it's going to be 5% damage per stack instead of 3%. So giving you a total 15% damage bonus against the target with Shadow Embrace, compared to the baseline Shadow Embrace giving you 9% total damage increase on them. So that's going to be good. Going to be good for single target, going to be good for priority damage in AoE. I think this is probably pretty strong. It's not the most exciting thing at all. It's just going to reward you for doing Shadow Embrace gameplay properly. So there you are. Corrupting Leer is next, and this one is quite interesting. Agony and Unstable Affliction damage has a 3% chance to reduce the cooldown of Summon Dark Glare by 5 seconds. Again, I guess this is the chance to reduce is going to scale up to 5.8% chance whenever those do damage. So this could be very good in AoE. The one thing to be concerned about is, okay, if you're just running the baseline Summon Dark Glare and you're not running Dark Soul Misery or Dark Call or whatever, then it's great. You know, whatever, more Summon Dark Glare is more good. The one thing to definitely be concerned about is, well, if you are planning to run the cooldown reduction on Summon Dark Glare, make it a 2-minute cooldown, and you're going to sync that up with Dark Soul Misery, the 2-minute cooldown giving you haste, well, this Potency Conduit wouldn't actually be good because it would desync those. So either it would have to desync it enough that Summon Dark Glare would be a 1-minute cooldown, so you get, you know, a second one off in between your Dark Soul Miseries, or it would have to be good enough to, you know, maybe it will be strong enough that you could run the 3-minute Summon Dark Glare, run another talent instead of reducing its cooldown, use this Potency Conduit to reduce the cooldown, and then sync it up with Dark Soul Misery, or simply don't care about Dark Soul Misery. Again, someone will run the numbers and figure out whether or not this is worth it and what situations it is going to be worth it in. It's certainly an interesting one, but presuming that the basic combo might be just the 2-minute Dark Glare with the 2-minute haste CD, this one won't probably see much play if that is the case, but again, we will see how it actually turns out. Focused Malignancy is next. These names, man. Malefic Rapture does 30% increased damage to targets suffering from Unstable Affliction. Looks like this might scale up to about 50% increased damage. So that is obviously going to really help your single target damage a lot, and it's going to also help your funnel damage, your focused priority target damage in AoE too. So I think this one's quite nice. Again, I expect this is something that you're nearly always going to run. I mean, Malefic Rapture is already doing more damage to the target with Unstable Affliction, most likely by virtue of Unstable Affliction being another dot, and it does more damage the more dots that are there. But yeah, obviously this is going to be amazing against any bosses. It's going to be amazing in PvP, amazing everywhere. Almost definitely this is one you're going to be running all the time. And finally, we have Rolling Agony, which increases the duration of Agony by 4 seconds. This goes up to about 8.3 seconds extra. So bringing Agony from an 18-second dot up to a 26-second dot, which is quite nice, I have to say. So yeah, this one certainly will make it a lot easier to multi-dot in Mythic Plus. You're not going to have to worry. Like, if you take the Everlasting, whatever it's called, the permanent corruption, and then you've got 26-second agonies, it's going to be very easy to multi-dot a lot of stuff, and that could be really good in higher Mythic Plus, where stuff is living for a long time. Again, we'll actually see in practice, does this end up being worthwhile, or is it better just to manually redot agony and it's not that big of a deal? I'm not sure, but it's certainly an interesting option. And there you are. They are the conduits for the Warlock. Your legendary powers for the Affliction Warlock, there are 8 different ones. Of course, you're going to be able to equip only one legendary at a time at the start of Shadowlands. First up, we have 4 general Warlock legendaries, which are available to all specs. Claw of Endreth is the first one. Drain life, deals damage, and restores health 50% faster. So it doesn't make it do any more damage, it just makes the channel quicker, right? So it's not going to make your inevitable demise do more damage or anything like that. I think this could see some use perhaps in PvP, where it will let you get, you know, a much faster burst out of inevitable demise. It could be nice for that one. I don't really see this being much use at all in PvE though. Yeah, not going to be very useful in PvE, but could have some niche PvP uses perhaps. Mark of Borrow Power is next. For Affliction, this gives Malefic Rapture a 10% chance to refund all soul shards spent. In other words, refund 1 soul shard. 10% chance to refund 1 soul shard. I feel like, again, this is really underwhelming. So I'm not seeing this one being all that exciting. Seems quite weak right now compared to some of the other ones we're going to look at. The third general Warlock Legendary power we have right here is actually pretty good. This is Pillars of the Dark Portal. Demonic Gateway is now instant cast, and your first use of the gateway does not trigger its cooldown. So by default it is a 2-second cast and has a 1.5 minute cooldown on using the gateway. So this is obviously a utility legendary. It's not something you're going to use all the time, but there definitely could be some interesting creative uses, perhaps on certain raid fights or perhaps in PvP, that you could really exploit this and do some cool plays with it. So I think this one is actually quite interesting. It's certainly not the legendary you're going to equip all the time, but this is a legendary that you may see used sometimes for some really cool plays. Finally, then, for the general ones, is Wilfred's Sigil of Superior Summoning. Every soul shard you spend reduces the cooldown of Summon Dark Lair by 1 second. So this is a bit more consistent cooldown reduction on Summon Dark Lair. And perhaps in Mythic Plus and AoE, if you're pulling lots of packs or there's lots of weak mobs and you can like snipe them out with Unstable Afflictions and with your Drain Soul and get lots of extra soul shards and spend lots, this could be useful. But it seems like a quite low amount of cooldown reduction. And again, going back to what we were talking about with the Conduits, if you are taking Dark Soul Misery at a 2-minute cooldown and syncing that up with a 2-minute Summon Dark Lair, then reducing Summon Dark Lair's cooldown by like 20 seconds or something with this legendary per cast, is just going to desync it and not actually be useful. So we will see. This one, again, doesn't seem all that good. It seems like it's going to be stronger for probably Destruction, but we'll see. For the Affliction Warlock specific legendary powers, there are 4, of course. First up, we have Perpetual Agony of Aj Akir. Probably said that wrong. Agony has a 20% chance, increased chance, to generate a soul shard. So this is quite nice. It's definitely going to make your single target rotation flow a little bit better. I mean, it's not the best chance in the world, but it's certainly going to help. So you're going to get more casts out. This will also be good in AoE. So this could be a very good choice on some spread cleave fights. So if you imagine a council fight where there's like 3 bosses that you want to damage them all at the same time, so you can have Agony up on all of them. You've got a lot more soul shards, be able to do a lot more Malefic Raptures. Could be pretty good. This has potential. The second one is Sacrilash's Dark Strike. Corruption damage is increased by 15%, and any target afflicted by your corruption also has their movement speed slowed by 15%. So this was an old Legion legendary that used to slow movement speed by 60%, so it's been nerfed a lot from that, but it was extremely strong in Legion. Obviously, that amount of slow is very powerful in PvP, and it's great in PvE as well to let your tank kite and do some plays like that. So this one could actually be pretty good. I mean, it's not a crazy amount of movement speed slow, but it is a little bit. And when you start stacking other move speed slows on top of that, that's where it starts to become a bit more significant. More corruption damage is, it's more corruption damage. It's easy to multi-dot with corruption, thanks to Seed of Corruption. So this one could be a decent one for AoE and Mythic Plus in particular. Malefic Wrath is next. Malefic Rapture increases the damage of your Drain Soul and Shadow Bolt by 25% for 8 seconds, stacking up to 8 times. So this works particularly well, of course, with Drain Soul. So you can imagine in Execute, where Drain Soul is already doing double damage, you fire off like 3 Malefic Raptures, increase its damage by 75%. You're going to do an absolute ton of damage. This has a synergy as well with one of the Covenant abilities too. So this one could be very, very strong. Not as good with Shadow Bolt, but still okay. And maybe pretty nice with Nightfall procs too, with that talent at level 15. So I think there's definitely a lot of potential for this one. This one looks pretty good for some funnel single target damage increase. And finally, we have the Wrath of Consumption. Targets that die with your agony applied to them grant you the Wrath of Consumption, increasing all periodic damage dealt by 5% for 20 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. So at max stacks, that's 25% more damage from all of your dots. This is obviously really good. I mean, in Mythic Plus, this could be great, especially in any fights where there's little adds coming in that are going to die quite easily. This could provide you with a lot of extra damage from your dots. I will say that right now on beta, a lot of your damage is actually coming from Malefic Rapture, and a lot of your damage is coming from Drain Soul. So this might not be as crazy as it sounds, compared to if like an Affliction Warlock from BFA, where a ton of your damage is of course coming from your Soul Shard Spender, which was Unstable Affliction, is going to be is just drooling all over this. With the new Malefic Rapture, which is not itself a dot, this is not quite that good, but I think it's still going to be a solid option if you're going to be able to maintain the buff. This could be very strong for just consistent, in particular, consistent AoE damage. So again, Mythic Plus perhaps, some raid fights with lots of ads spawning in, this could be good. So yeah, an interesting set of legendaries there. For the Warlock Covenant abilities, let's look at the Kyrians first. Their signature ability is Summon Steward. It's essentially like another Healthstone. He brings you a little Vial of Serenity. It has 3 charges. You can use 1 per combat, just like a Healthstone. This restores 15% of your health and removes all curses, diseases, poisons, and bleed effects. So, pretty good, actually. I think, there's lots of those effects floating around in Shadowlands, and being able to remove them from yourself is a very, very nice extra layer of defenses, so that's pretty good. Scouring Tithe is the Warlock Covenant ability for the Kyrian. To do a chunk of spell power arcane damage instantly, and then a bigger chunk as a dot over 18 seconds. And if the enemy dies while afflicted by Scouring Tithe, you generate 5 soul shards. If they survive, though, it just instantly refreshes the cooldown. This does have a 2-second cast time and a 40-second cooldown. Also, tying into this, there is a conduit for this called Soul Tithe, which for Affliction makes it that when a target dies under the effect of Scouring Tithe, you get 10% increased damage from your Malefic Rapture for 10 seconds. And that can actually scale up to 24% increased damage from Malefic Rapture for 10 seconds. This one actually looks like it could be pretty good. So it has some synergies with Affliction. Number one, it is another dot. I don't believe it gets extended by Dark Lair. Dark Lair doesn't extend it, but I think it does add to Dark Lair's damage, and it also adds, I believe, to Malefic Rapture's damage, so that's already pretty nice. And of course, in single target, because let's say against a raid boss, the raid boss is obviously going to be living most of the time. This is just another permanent dot you're going to have up on them, so that's some good single target damage. When it comes to AoE, that's where things get pretty spicy with that conduit. So I think this is going to be a difficult one to play around. But if you play around this well and you've got a lot of skill, you could really do some cool things with this. Like if you snipe out a target and kill it off with Scouring Tithe, and you have your dots applied to lots of other targets, you're going to get 5 soul shards. You can cast 5 Malefic Raptures in a row, and you're going to be doing, with the max rank conduit, 24% more damage with that Malefic Rapture. Like, that's an absolute monstrous amount of AoE burst damage that you're going to get out of that. So yeah, Scouring Tithe, I think, in single target raid bosses, it's very simple. Just cast it every 18 seconds, maintain the dot, cool. This becomes pretty crazy in AoE. There's going to be a lot of ways to play around it. You're going to really need to think about it, really need to plan it on how you're going to spend those soul shards, and especially how you're going to use that 10-second buff if you go with the conduit. So an intriguing one for sure. For the Venthyr, their signature ability is Door of Shadows. This has a 1-minute cooldown, 1.5-second cast, and 35-yard range, and it's a point-and-click teleport. Pretty nice, right? You can again dodge over mechanics. So lots of teleports for the Warlock, lots of mobility between your gateway, your now baseline demonic circle, and the Door of Shadows if you take it. So pretty cool. The Covenant ability then is Impending Catastrophe. Call forth a cloud of chaotic anima that travels to the target enemy, doing a chunk of spell power, shadow damage to enemies in its path, and when it reaches the target, it explodes, inflicting either Curse of Weakness or Curse of Tongues, and doing a big chunk of spell power shadow damage over 12 seconds to all nearby enemies. This has a 2-second cast time and a 1-minute cooldown, 40-yard range. So this one is also really, really good. If we look at the conduit very quickly as well, it's Catastrophic Origin, which makes its damage over time and the inflicted curse last 50% longer against your primary target, going up to 100% longer, so making it much better in single target. Always nice to see when AoE Covenant abilities get conduits that give them single target benefit, or vice versa, so that's nice. This one is great though. This one's really, really good. It's obviously going to be difficult in Mythic Plus, for example. It's going to take a lot of time to apply those curses to every single mob, and this is going to automatically apply those curses, which is good. One downside is that right now it seems to be random, so whatever, it could put a Curse of Tongues on a melee only mob, it could put a Curse of Weakness on a caster mob. It's random, so that, it may work, it may not, but certainly it's going to save you a lot of time in terms of applying those curses in AoE, which I think is good. And it's also going to do really good AoE damage too, which is nice. It's also a dot, so it should help your Malefic Rapture and Dark Lair damage. So yeah, I think this one, it's pretty simple, right? Every 1 minute, maybe save it for when ads are going to come in, throw it out, big AoE damage, get your curses up on lots of stuff. It will do more damage to that single main target with the conduit. It's good. It's really good. I could see this one being this in potentially in Mythic Plus for being very simple, straightforward, but very, very effective, and that lovely utility attached to it as well. For the Necrolords, their signature ability is Fleshcraft. Channel for 4 seconds with a 2-minute cooldown to form a shield of flesh and bone that will prevent damage equal to 20% of your maximum health. If you channel near corpses, you can claim their essence and empower the shield further up to 50% of your maximum health. So this is a big old shield. It does have a big channel time, mind you. So certainly you will find uses for this. There's no doubt about that. I feel like the Warlock is already relatively tanky for a caster, but I mean, every little bit of extra defensive can help, and you'll find some uses for this. The Covenant ability is pretty nutty for Affliction. This is Decimating Bolt. This has a 45-second cooldown and a quite hefty 2.5-second cast time, but you hurl a bolt of shadow magic at your target, doing 4 times 50% spell power shadow damage, and increasing the damage of your next Drain Soul or Shadow Bolt by 200%. Decimation Bolt's damage and the bonus it's going to give to your Drain Soul or Shadow Bolt are both going to increase as your target's health decreases. So this gets nutty with Drain Soul. With Shadow Bolt, whatever, 200% more damage with Shadow Bolt, doing more damage to lower health the target, that's fine. With Drain Soul, though, this gets insane. Drain Soul, number one, right? Drain Soul is just straight up does more damage than Shadow Bolt, because it's a longer cast, right? You have to channel it for a few seconds, right? For 5 seconds, but it does a big chunk of damage. Well, here's the thing. Whereas you're going to churn through those Shadow Bolts in 3 casts, this does not get consumed like per tick of Drain Soul. No. This gets consumed per channel of Drain Soul, which means that whenever you fire this off, you're going to get 3 beastly Drain Soul channels that are going to do tons of damage. Drain Soul as well is already doing double damage to enemies that are below 20% health. It's already doing double damage to enemies below 20% health. And this one is going to make it do even more damage whenever you snipe a target that has low health with this. So the execute damage from Affliction Warlock is just going to go through the roof with this. You can even do cool things like you can, let's say you pull the first one mob pack in Mythic Plus, you can, as you're killing off that mob pack, you can snipe one of those very low health mobs with Decimating Bolt, get a mega buff to your next 3 Drain Souls, then when you pull the next mob pack, dot them up, and then just start spending those mega buff Drain Souls to just do crazy single target damage to a mob of your choice. Extremely powerful, extremely potent. The Soulbind Conduit for this, the potency one, is giving Shadow Bolt or Drain Soul a 20% chance to not consume a charge of Decimating Bolt. That goes up to 50%, so that's kind of insane. If you've got 3 Drain Souls and there's a 50% chance it's not going to consume this at all, this is going to do disgusting damage in single target boss fights. Absolutely disgusting, right? It's going to put your dots on the target, hit them with a Decimating Bolt, and then just Drain Soul and rip them to shreds and execute. You're going to do so much. So this seems nuts. Absolutely nuts. Yeah, I'm kind of worried about this one perhaps even being too strong. Like, it seems kind of crazy. So yeah, there you go, guys. That is a pretty crazy one for the Affliction Warlocks. And then finally we have the Night Fae. Their signature ability is Soul Shape. This is a 1.5 minute cooldown, lasts for 12 seconds. You turn into a Vulpin and you instantly teleport 15 yards forward and get 50% more move speed. And you can reactivate Soul Shape every few seconds to teleport again. So it's about every 4 seconds you can reactivate it to teleport another 15 yards forward. So lovely mobility, burst mobility cooldown, which is quite nice. It might save you from having to use Burning Rush. You could talent into, a Dark Pact or something instead. That could be kind of cool. And not, or I mean, just have mobility that's not tied into spending your health. So yeah, I think this was a pretty cool one. Could have some uses for sure. And then the Covenant ability for the Warlocks is Soul Rot. Wither away all the life force of your current target and up to 3 additional targets nearby, causing them to suffer about a chunk of spell power nature damage over 8 seconds. And then the second part of this is that Drain Life, your next Drain Life, will be cast on all enemies affected by your Soul Rot. Now this has a 1 minute cooldown and 1.5 second cast time, and it does cost 20% max health to cast this. But let's say that there are 4 targets. I hit them with Soul Rot, so it puts a nice little dot on them, and then my next Drain Life is going to hit all 4 of them, which is kind of cool. It's going to heal you an awful lot. That's a ton of burst healing from that Drain Life, which is cool. Again, this has particular synergy with Affliction Warlock with the Inevitable Demise talent at level 15, which can massively ramp up the damage of our Drain Life. So this could potentially, for Affliction, be really good, where you could get a very powerful AoE nuke in that Drain Life channel. So some potential there. The Conduit for this one is called Exhumed Soul. It's going to increase Soul Rot's damage and radius by 20%, but cost 7% more health. So I love that it has a downside to it. Like, ouch. It looks like that scales up to maybe 50% more damage and radius, which is fine. It's okay. I mean, the thing that definitely puts me off this one is this is going to be good if there's 4 targets, but if there's less than 4 targets, like if there's only 1 target, like a boss, this gets pretty terrible. So yeah, I'd say this one is, I think the other Warlock Covenant abilities all have very big appeal to them for the Affliction Warlock in their different unique ways. I feel this one, although it has particular synergy with Affliction, with Drain Life, and how we can use that with Inevitable Demise, I'm really not seeing it being all that good. It seems a bit too clunky, but that being said, maybe in some Mythic Plus situations, maybe in some PvP situations, I don't know, maybe it will have some interesting uses. Who knows? And those are all the pieces of the Affliction Warlock on the Shadowlands beta. So how is it playing? Is it fun? And how strong is this thing going to be? Let me touch on fun first. I'll certainly say that I enjoyed playing Affliction Warlock. I think it's pretty good. Definitely, it feels a ton better now than it used to, I think, in BFA. In BFA, with your Soul Shard Spender being Unstable Affliction, that gave it a very slow ramp-up time, and it was arguably the worst DPS spec in the entire game in Mythic Plus. Like, it was pretty dreadful, just so slow and really struggled to do any AoE damage. All of that with the new Malefic Rapture feels so much better. Just spending your soul shards to instantly do damage to every single thing that has a dot on it. Malefic Rapture can do great burst AoE damage. It's amazing for split cleave, and it just happens faster, right? It's a lot snappier. So I think it's an absolutely massive improvement. In fact, it's actually really crazy, really impressive to look at and to see how much of a difference just changing one small thing. Just by changing the Soul Shard Spender, they completely change the feel of a spec and how good it can be in different situations. So yeah, this is a massive boost for Affliction Warlocks. You might actually get invited to Mythic Plus groups. You might, in fact, be really, really damn good in Mythic Plus now. Who knows? Well, we'll have to see. I will say that you're still going to struggle. I will say that in the world content as Affliction Warlock, one problem was that it's actually a bit OP right now. Like, Malefic Rapture does so much damage, stuff just dies. So you kind of put your dots on, you cast a couple of Malefic Raptures, and everything is just dead. So that did actually suck out some of the fun. You know, because it was just a bit too easy in the world questing, which, you know, that's a downside, actually, believe it or not. That is a downside. You don't want things to be too easy. But I think it's gonna feel pretty fun. Yeah, I think it was good. I mean, it's also very interesting, their talent tree. There's so many different options, right? There's loads of different options, loads of different builds you can have, and that's very intriguing. I think it looks, on the surface, to be a good talent tree. One thing that's a bit weird is that in single target, like I was doing some Mythic, not Mythic Plus, I was doing some dungeons with the Affliction Warlock, and because I was running a dungeon build, right, with the infinite corruption, and I didn't have siphon life and all of that, it meant that when it came to single target, it was relatively basic. Like, I just put on corruption and that was on permanently. Then it was maintain agony, maintain unstable affliction, whatever, use my cooldowns and spend my soul shards, and then just channel drain soul. And, you know, there was a lot of just channeling drain soul, to be honest with you. Like, there wasn't a ton going on in that single target situation. Although that being said, my Covenant ability didn't work and stuff in the dungeon, so I didn't have that extra aspect. Of course, you know, the Necrolord Covenant in particular seems like a total game changer. But yeah, no, I thought it was cool. I thought it was good. It's a nice spec and a lot more usable now. So yeah, gonna be a spec you're gonna see come back big time. Let's talk about the power. Let's talk about power and strength, because certainly right now in the beta, the best range DPS spec is this. It is the Affliction Warlock. Tuning has yet to happen. Blizzard is going to tune stuff. They're going to buff stuff. They're going to nerf stuff. We'll see. But that being said, even when that happens, when you look at the toolkit of the Affliction Warlock, I think that if you were going to bet on any spec being the best spec, it would still have to be the Affliction Warlock. Like, this looks freaking nuts. This looks absolutely crazy. I mean, number one, you're a multi-dot class, right? Which is not as bad in AoE now as it used to be, because all the other classes really are getting target caps. So, like, when AoE burst comes in, it's a lot easier to keep up as the Affliction Warlock than it used to be. But even more than that, your strengths, you're going to be very good at spread cleave. Like, if you've got to fight, you know, 4 mobs and 2 of them are 30 yards to the left and 2 of them are 20 yards to the right, you know, whereas an arms warrior can only hit 1 pack, you can obviously dot them all up and hit all of them at the same time. So you're going to be really, really powerful in any fights with spread cleave. And there's a lot of your different conduits and legendaries and stuff that are going to empower that even further. And Malefic Rapture just hits everything, so with your dots on it. So yeah, it's going to be super strong in spread cleave. But then even more than that, you're also going to be incredibly good in execute damage. Single target execute looks absolutely nuts with Drain Soul and the stuff you can build in with Drain Soul, with the Necrolord Covenant in particular, where you can make your Drain Souls do, you know, 200% more damage. It seems it's got to be nerfed, right? They've got to nerf it. It just seems madness. like, you're gonna do so much damage with that decimating bolt, massively buffing up your drain soul. You're just gonna rip through things in execute. So yeah, I think that's certainly looking appealing. But then even the other Covenants. So I didn't really like the Night Fae, but the Venthyr one was like just a cool big chunk of AoE damage. That's going to also apply your curses in AoE. So that was pretty nice. Going to be great for Mythic Plus. I think just that's the simple, straightforward, great in AoE. The Kyrian one was even very intriguing, where in single target, it's just another dot that you keep up all the time. But when you can kill things with it, like giving you 5 soul shards and massively buffing Malefic Rapture for 10 seconds, like you could do some really cool big AoE bursts with that. That's something that really struck me about this spec as well, is that there's a lot of potential for skilled play. You know, like there's a skill already in managing multi-dots on lots of targets, but then just the interesting stuff you can do, like with timing your Malefic Raptures at particular times, around particular abilities, with using, in particular, those Covenant abilities have a lot of skill gameplay attached to them. And then not even mentioning like the Legendaries and Conduits and stuff you can do there. There's a lot going on. And of course, all of the mobility, the demonic circles, the gateways, there's a ton going on. This is definitely a spec. If you're a hardcore raider and you're looking for a spec with a lot of depth and a spec that's going to be very powerful, I can 100% recommend this one. I think this is looking really, really good. Really, really good. So yeah, a big contender for, could end up being the best range spec in the Shadowlands. That is, guys, the Affliction Warlock. It's a pretty terrifying one to look at, to be honest with you, because this thing is good. This thing does damage. Right. Thank you for watching, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.